so you'll just have to listen very closely. Today we're going to be doing a lesson on analyzing scatter plots. So I'm going to show you how to create a scatter plot and also how to understand what it's talking about. A scatter plot is just another way to show data, excuse me, except for we're going to be looking at the relationship between two different things. So if you could right now turn to your table of contents and put in analyze scatter plots. So you can pause this video so that you can put that into your table of contents right now. After you're done putting it in your table of contents, you'll go ahead and you'll put it in as your title. All right, so do that now and pause it if you need to. Once you're done, I'm going to have you go ahead and put in the definition of a scatter plot. And so let me zoom in for you. Oh, I can't zoom in. It says a scatter plot is a graph that shows a relationship between two sets of data. So for instance, data that we would be looking at is two things that have to do with one another, such as if it gets really, really hot outside, then probably at the store more water bottles will be sold. Or the more snowy a city gets, the more snow shovels will be sold. Another example would be the more hours you study, the more questions you will get right. So a scatter plot shows us how those two things relate to one another. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is make this table right here. So you can see here that I've made a table. It's got a title. It says Shopping in Winter. So we're going to be pretending that it's winter time and we're at the store and it's very cold outside. We're also going to pretend that every day we write down the temperature. So the first day it was 12 degrees. That's really cold. The next day it was 19 degrees. Then we have 8 degrees, 17, 9, and 20. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that we wrote down the temperature. Remember, just like normal, the temperature won't always go up 1 degree every time. So that's why these are all different, because every day it was a different temperature. Over here, this says the number of coats that are sold. That tells us that the day that it was 12 degrees outside, 9 coats were sold at the store. When it was 19 degrees outside, 4 coats were sold. When it was 8 degrees, 15 coats were sold. When it was 17 degrees, only 5 were sold. When it was 9, then 14 coats were sold. And when it was 20 degrees, only 2 coats were sold. So just like our input-output table, this has an X and a Y. So over here we have the X on this side, and over here are our Y's. Now, there's not a pattern here like an input-output table. We're not doing anything to the 12 to get the 9 or to the 19 to get the 4. These are two different strips of data. These are all of the temperatures, and these are all of the coats that were sold. So now we're going to turn these into ordered pairs. If you remember, an ordered pair is just writing the X and the Y. So our first ordered pair would be 12, 9. Because 12 is our X and 9 is our Y. Our next ordered pair would be 19, 4, because 19 is our X and 4 is our Y. Next is 8, 15, because we have our X here and our Y here. Next is 17, 5. Then we have 9, 14. Then we have 20, 2. And that's all of our ordered pairs. Now, since we have our ordered pairs, we want to turn these into a scatter plot. So by doing that, what we're going to have to do is make a coordinate grid. So down here, I've made my coordinate grid. And please pause this now so that you can put this in. Make sure that you write this down. All of this needs to be in your journal, so please pause if you need to. Over here, I've written my coordinate grid. Now remember, you have a y-axis on this side and an x-axis down here. The the first thing we need to do is come up with a good title for this graph. Now, it's a little different from shopping in winter because we want to see what all of them have to do with each other. So let's go ahead and wait on the title for now. I also did a scale of 2 so that we didn't have to number all the way to 20. Our biggest number was 20 on the X's, so I know I needed to go at least 20. Our biggest number on the Y's was 15, so I just went all the way up to 20 also. And I numbered by 2's. So I'm going to plot my first point. It's 12, 9. So I go down the runway to 12, and I go up to where the 9 is. The 9's going to be right there between the 10 and the 8. And I'm going to put a point. The next one was 19, 4. So I'm going to go all the way down to 19 and go up to 4. Okay. The next one's 8, 15. So I'm going to go down to 8 and up to the 15. Then we have 7, 5. I'm sorry, 17, 5. So I go to 17, go up to about 5. Then we have 9, 14. So we go over to 9, and we go all the way up to 14. Then lastly, we have 20, 2. So 20 is here, and 2 is right here. All right? So we plotted our points. Now we're going to look and see what do these two datas have to do with each other. Over here, because this was the number of coats, I'm going to put number of coats. And the reason I know that is because up here I know my Y's are on this side. So the Y side over here was the number of coats. And down here, our X side is the low temperature. So that was our low temperature. So over here was the number of coats. That was our Y's. And over here is the low temperature. That's our X's. Please pause this now so that you can write all of this in. After you've paused it, now we have to figure out what do they have to do with each other. So please write this question down. This says make an inference. An inference is kind of like an educated guess. It means that we have some sort of evidence to make a guess. So write this question. What happens to the number of coats as the temperature drops? So what we can see in our table is that as the temperature got lower, when it was 8, they bought 15 coats. But when it was 20 degrees, they only bought 2. And you can see here in this graph that it starts going down. If we were to kind of draw a line through these, we can see that it's starting to go down. So what we realize is that, and think about this, if it gets really, really cold, you probably can guess that more coats will be bought. So as the temperature gets higher, then less coats will be bought. So what we're going to write is as the temperature as the temperature drops, more coats are bought. Okay, so all we did to figure this out is look at our data. We could see that as the temperature gets higher, so from 0 degrees all the way up to 20, people bought less and less coats. But as the temperature got lower, people bought more and more coats up here. So that's how you read a scatter plot. It just compares two sets of different data and it sees if they have any sort of relationship. Sometimes they won't have a relationship. It will just look like a bunch of dots everywhere. That means that they have no relationship at all. They have nothing to do with one another. Sometimes you'll see that as these get bigger, then this will get bigger also, and it'll slowly go up this way. But in this case, as the x's got bigger down here, as we went from 2 to 8 to 12, 16, 20, as it got bigger, then the y values got smaller and smaller. So they went from being up here as 16 all the way down to 2. So the x's got bigger, but the y's got smaller. All right, so please make sure you have all of this in your journal, and then you'll be done with this journal entry. All right, see you later.